right there in New York City as we just passed the 5 o'clock hour. We're talking about a murder investigation at a Soho hotel and then the arrest that was made in Arizona after several stabbings. We want to be joined right now by Fox 5's Arthur Chien. Arthur, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. And we're going to start with your perspective in New York. What do we know and what's the latest on this story?
Well, Andrew, the jaw-dropping development here is that the prosecutors in Arizona are denying New York's request to have the suspect in this murder case extradited to New York. Now, the way, as you know, extradition works is when a suspect is arrested in another state, the state in which the crime was committed can request that person be sent to them to face justice in that state. It's done for serious crimes, and certainly murder qualifies as a serious crime here. New York made the requests, but the prosecutor there said the reason why she is not granting it is because of the way the Manhattan District Attorney here in New York handles cases involving violent criminals.
Not be agreeing to extradition.
A simple sentence, but a devastating one in the case of the murder at the Soho 54 Hotel in Lower Manhattan, where 2 weeks ago, the body of 38-year-old Queens resident Denise Oleas Arab Sibia was found in room 1109. A broken iron believed to be the murder weapon after the medical examiner determined she was killed by blunt force trauma to her head. That was 2 weeks ago. And the good news yesterday was that police in Arizona arrested the suspect in the case, 26-year-old Rod Al-Mansouri. But in an astonishing twist, Arizona officials tonight say they are refusing to extradite Al-Mansouri to New York, saying Manhattan's district attorney, Alvin Bragg, cannot be trusted.
Having observed the treatment of violent criminals in the New York area by the Manhattan DA there, Alvin Bragg, I think it's safer to keep him here and keep him in custody.
The statement comes after Bragg's controversial handling of high-profile incidents, including the release of suspects in the case of migrants assaulting NYPD officers in Times Square, even kicking one in the head. As for Al-Mansouri, Arizona police say he was arrested Sunday after stabbing a female McDonald's employee multiple times. He's accused of stabbing 2 women in the Phoenix area in his most recent violent spree, and in April kidnapped and sexually assaulted a woman in Florida. But if the refusal to extradite Al-Mansouri to New York to face murder charges is rooted in the fear he could walk, some are asking why Florida set him free after he was arrested there for the kidnapping and assault. And a reporter in Arizona today asked officials there why they haven't charged him with more violent offenses.
Why wasn't an attempted homicide charge recommended in the Phoenix case? Records show the victim was stabbed in the neck, temple, and elsewhere, and he allegedly confessed to wanting to kill her.
Now, the police response to that reporter's question is that Al-Mansouri may still yet face more serious charges, but they're still in the process of collecting evidence. As for Alvin Bragg's office here, the Manhattan DA says in a statement that he finds it incredibly, quote, disturbing that the prosecutor in Arizona is playing, quote, political games with a murder investigation. It's not clear what the next steps are, but it's hard to imagine this is over.
So
that's the latest from
Arizona.
To you, Andrew.
All right, thank you so much.
Has a felon in custody that committed crimes in New York and committed crimes in Florida. But this is the thing. Arizona, because they know New York is so liberal and they got all these liberal laws where citizens are constantly being robbed and killed, good working people, because they're not allowing them to, hold guns. They basically have all the laws against the citizens are cons, and all the laws against the felons are more pro than con. You commit violent crimes, you could come out with no bail. It's so many things up there that's like unheard of. In New York, the laws is just unheard of in New York and California. And Arizona, they had enough. They're like, that's it. When we heard about y'all up there, we are not sending him up there so y'all could release him on this non-bail nonsense, and then he's back out committing crimes, and then guess what? He'll be right back in Arizona, and probably another young girl gonna lose, another one of the Arizonians are gonna lose their life. At least Arizona's showing that they actually care about their citizens, even though we know they don't give a hell. They're government. But at least they're showing that they care about their citizens in some type of way. More better than New York. New York can't even pass one good law to protect their citizens, the people that wake up every day and work and pay them high taxes. They can't even make a law to protect them. Instead, they make laws of people who don't wake up every day and pay and go to work and pay taxes. The people out here taking from the hardworking. So that's the situation we have right here. I mean, this is amazing. I've never even heard anything like this before, but I encourage it. I encourage it from other states. Don't let these liberal states take over. Stand your ground. Because if these liberal states take over, guess what? Brazil has a murder rate of 10 times of the whole United States. If we continue to let this liberal criminal justice take over, United States will have the highest criminal murder rate of all of Brazil and also most countries. Third world countries where people are suffering and need to steal and kill. They have more of a need for it. It's never a need to kill and steal from anybody. But when you think of humanity, some people that have more of a need for it than the American citizens. No matter if you are on the bottom of the class ship of American citizens, the third world party have way more a right of stealing and killing than you American.
Certainly kind of overshadowing some of the victims here, just this controversy there between the two DAs. And I'm sure we're going to hear more from our partners in Arizona as well. Arthur Chien, thanks again for your great reporting.
Pleasure. Thanks, Andrew.
All right, thank you so much. As we continue on, and of course, we're following that very closely here on Live Now from Fox. And Arthur had just said, talking about Alvin Bragg and the statement, I do want to put up this as he posted this on X on social media, saying it is deeply disturbing that the DA Mitchell is playing political games in a murder investigation in Manhattan. We are serious about New Yorker safety, which is why murders are down 24% and shootings down 38% since DA Bragg took office. New York's murder rate is less than half that of Phoenix, Arizona, because of the hard work of the NYPD and all of our law enforcement partners. It is a slap in the face to them and to the victims in our case to refuse to allow us to seek justice and full accountability for the New Yorker's death. So certainly a story that will continue to follow, a controversy there between states on two very different sides of the country. Of course, you were hearing in that story from Arthur Chien, the press conference taking place inside of that Maricopa County office that we were on that earlier today. We also have a longer conversation with the DA Mitchell in Phoenix, Arizona. I want to play that.
So now the state of New York
now on Live Now from Fox
is basically giving their stats. They're like, nah, Phoenix, our crime rate is lower than yours. We are fighting our crime out here. Even though we are letting our criminals out on no bail, our crime is decreasing way more than Phoenix. And until I see the numbers, I think that's bull. Because number one, Phoenix, even if Phoenix have 300 murders, the population of Phoenix is super minute compared to New York. So even, let's say if they have 1,000 people and 300 people getting killed in Phoenix, that's a lot of people. But if New York has, let's say 50,000, and let's say out of those 50,000, 20,000 people are getting killed. That's close to the same percentage as Phoenix. It's close to the same percentage as Phoenix. But you know what? Don't hear it from me. Let's hear it from the DA of Phoenix.
Okay. Is that good? Do you want me to do a sound check now on that? Think we're good? Okay. Okay.
Alrighty, I'll go ahead and start. You've received some criticism with Charles Ryan and that deal. Can you talk a little bit about step by step, the process behind that decision and why you came ultimately to that decision?
Yeah, absolutely. It starts with what the law requires. The law requires that the person intentionally place another in reasonable apprehension of their life or serious injury. And I reviewed all of the body-worn camera. I reviewed the police reports. I also looked at the medical records that were created that night. And what I saw was an individual who was highly intoxicated, who had taken Ambien, who had suffered a recent head injury, who was out of it to the extent that he shot his sink, which is what brought officers to the house. And then in reviewing the body-worn camera, what I saw was a man who had a gun, who regularly would walk around with a gun to patrol his house because of his past employment. And he did not ever intentionally point the gun at the officers. He waved it and it crossed over them, but there was no deliberate act of pointing the gun. And based on that, it did not meet the statutory requirement of intentionally placing another in fear using a gun.
And what would you say to those who claim that this was special treatment? What is your response to that?
Everybody that comes before my office is going to get the same treatment, and that is we're going to review the case and we're going to look at the law and then we're going to do the right thing. And in this case, that was the right thing.
Can you explain a little bit more just on this case, how that extradition works? So yesterday I was on the phone with your office and it was kind of explained like the Lori Vallow case, where first he's going to have to face the charges here. Can you just kind of explain that for us?
Well, as you know, in the Lori Vallow case, she was tried up in Idaho and then we extradited her here. But since this individual, Mr. Al-Mansouri, is here, it is our intention to proceed first. He is in custody. He's being held without bond. And so other states that may want to extradite him for charges such as New York can file their extradition paperwork.
Sound of freedom.
Yeah. God bless America. Anyway, other states that have charges that they want to proceed against Mr. Al-Mansouri can file their paperwork, but we're going to proceed here first, and then they can extradite him.
And then yesterday we also spoke to one of his victims out of Florida, and she said she felt like the justice system failed her. Can you just kind of tell me a little bit about your thoughts on how he was able to get away from that case in Florida and then continue his crime spree throughout the next couple states?
I would refer you to Florida to ask those questions. I haven't, taken a deep dive on that as to why they did not file charges right away. So I don't want to comment on that. But what my job here is to make sure that these victims feel like they have received justice here, and we're about doing that.
You mentioned New York is somewhere you didn't feel like, or at least Manhattan, had always taken as tough a stance as they needed to on violent criminals. If this were a murder charge from somewhere else, would